I was a proud member of the Future Farmers of America. Shout out to my ag teacher, Mr. Dewberry. Right? My habit didn't die down in college. Oh no, and before you judge me, I worked at a screen printing place, so I made several t-shirts, so it didn't help with this habit. I have several Auburn shirts because from my college days. War Eagle, right? Here's another beauty from my college days. Check this out. That's right. That says Trailer Park Trash. So it's a long story. I'll explain it to you later, but I was a part of a softball team called the Trailer Park Trash. Isn't that golden? This habit didn't die down in my college days. Oh no, this is the very first Wellspring shirt I ever owned. Ask me about my shirt. You'll meet me in the lobby. I'll sell it for you too for a good price. It's worth a lot now, right? You can have this back. I know you want them, right? Please don't burn them. But our hobbies are, we love to collect things. We love to remember the things from the past. We are 1 week away from Christmas, right? So for you procrastinators, now is go time. Now's the time to go get all those gifts bought. You still got time. But around Christmas time, we began to think about the past. It's a natural time in our lives where we think about Christmases long ago, just like the song said. And we think about things that we've always done. We always have to go to Meemaw's house on Christmas Day, right? Because we've always done that. We always go and spend time with them and eat all their good food. We always pull out those Christmas plates that we eat on once a year. We do that because we've always done it, right? And it helps us remember things in the past. We always like to get out these recipes and cook Christmas cookies because it reminds us of making cookies with our parents or our grandparents. It helps us to remember the past. And so, what's the big deal about remembering the past? What's so wrong with that? What's the problem with that? You're tracking with me, right? We have to ask ourselves, is that right? Is that a good thing to do? Is that a good thing to be thinking about all the time? Well, maybe. But for some of us, no matter if you find yourself here today and you know God, or if you've walked in these doors and you don't know God, and we love that you're here. It affects every single one of us, but the problem lies when we find ourselves stuck in the past. When it becomes more than just a hobby where we collect t-shirts. And it becomes something that affects not only us, but everybody around us. What happens when we find ourselves stuck in the past, where we can't move forward? Today I want you to know that no matter how great your past was or how damaging your past was, I want you to know today that God has a better future in store for you. And He has a plan for you. And today, as we're going to talk, we're going to look at some ways that we can move on from our past and focus on what the right things are. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at how we leave the past and focus on what lasts. We're going to talk about leaving the past and focus on what lasts. But for just a minute, let's talk about the good side of remembering. As we just talked about, there are some good reasons and good ways or good things, good value to remembering. In fact, did you know that God actually values remembering? All throughout the Old Testament, the first part of our Bible, we see over and over that God instructs His people that every time they came through something that He brought them through or they accomplished something in His name, He instructed them to remember, to set up things to remind themselves of all that God had done in their lives. In the New Testament, at the end of Jesus' ministry, He taught us the importance of remembering. He sat down with His closest followers at the Last Supper. And He took out the bread, and He took out the wine, and He said, remember me. Remember all that I have done. And so He taught His followers an important lesson about remembering. Check out what this writer in the book of Psalms says about remembering. But then I recall all you have done, O Lord. I remember your wonderful deeds of long ago. They are constantly in my thoughts. I cannot stop thinking about your mighty works. But I recall all you have done. I remember all you have done. See, he's saying, God, you have done so much, and they're constantly on my thoughts. I remember what you have done. Last year, our pastor Trey did an amazing series just on this one topic. It's called I Love the 90s. I would highly recommend that you go check out that series. It's so helpful because it just reinforces the idea of the importance of remembering. And I want to remind you of a couple of things that he talked to us about. Check this out. He said that God's provision in the past always points us toward his plan for the future. God's provision in the past always points us to his plan for the future. You see, the best way to know what God's up to in your life is to look at the past. The best way to know what God's doing is to look at what he's done in the past. And as we do that, and as we see how God has moved in our lives and how God has brought us to this point, it builds our faith. It helps us take steps to continue to follow him. And as we do that, as we take those steps to follow God, as we honor him, the people around us also their faith begins to grow because they see how our life has changed. So God's provision in the past always points us to his plan for the future. So remembering the past is a good thing. There can be some good things to remember. But the important thing that God wants us to know is that he has done, even though he's done some amazing things in the past, he doesn't want us to stay there. He wants us to remember the past so that we can move forward and step in to all that he has for us. So let's remember the past, but let's not stay there. But what happens if we find ourselves not only remembering the past, but as I said, what happens when we find ourselves stuck, where we can't move on because of some things that have happened to us and some other things that have gone on? Over the next few minutes, I want to talk about ways that we find ourselves stuck. In order to be able to move on from our past, to move on from being stuck, we first have to identify how we got there in the first place. So over the next few minutes, we're going to look at 3 major areas that we find ourselves stuck. And just bear with me. They're going to seem like a bit of a downer, a little bit of a depressing thing here a week from Christmas. But I promise you, we're going to have a resolution and we're going to move beyond them. Okay? So the first way that I believe that many of us find ourselves stuck is what I like to call the Uncle Rico syndrome. The Uncle Rico syndrome. What is that? Well, some of you instantly know what that is. Some of you are very confused, and I understand. Uncle Rico is a character from a very popular movie, or I think it was popular, called Napoleon